Hey there, young men. Have you ever looked at fire, kind of examined the power of fire? Hopefully, you haven't played with fire much. I know as young men, one of the favorite things we used to do when we were camping was to build a fire. My kids loved to play in the fire and burn things. It's part of growing up. I think we used to kind of explore different things to do with a fire, but none of them are probably a good thing. A fire is a great thing. It's a great tool that we can use to help us in our lives, but it also can be very destructive. And I wanted to share a few pictures with you and some of the thoughts about fire. Is if you use it correctly, it can be a great servant. But if fire is the master, if it's can control what happens. So just real quick. So here's some things. Fire. We use fire with cars. If you've studied or you know much about mechanics, auto mechanics, you know here's a picture of a engine cylinder with a block, four cylinders here, and what kind of fire is controlled. So we've got an engine block that keeps it within very contained boundaries. As that air and gas get compressed, it's ignited and there's an explosion. But there's very, very fine, very detailed boundaries of where that fire and air can have their reaction. And what's the result? What's the result of having a fire like that? Well, we have great freedom. We can take our cars and we can go all over the country, visit people, and there's a lot of freedom that comes with controlling that application of fire. Well, let's look at it. What if fire is in control and we are the slave to that fire? What boundaries are here? Of course, as you can see, this car fire, I'm not sure how it was started, but we all have fuel tanks on our cars, and some malfunction happened, and the fire was unbounded. And what happened? Hopefully, this person driving the car got out of the car quickly and was not injured. But great destruction that destroyed that car was totaled. Looks like it's going to be burnt to the ground by the time they get the fire out. What's another example? Fire as our servant. So here's a picture of a furnace. I don't know if you guys have studied furnaces, but it's a great blessing to be able to go on a cold day, go to the thermostat and turn up the temperature and get some warm air out into the house. So you can see here on the air intake side, here's the cold air coming into the furnace. You've got a fan at the bottom that blows it up through where the burners are at. So here's where the natural gas comes in. It comes into a burn chamber. The cold air passes across that, a heat exchange. It warms up that air to 100-degree temperature air, very hot air. And then it's blown out the outgoing warm air, and it supplies all of the vents for the house, warms up our houses. So what's the result of having this fire controlled? Well, we've got very defined boundaries to that gas and fire. So it's a blessing. We have warm houses because of it. What happens if those boundaries are removed? I don't know if you guys have ever seen a house fire, but it's very dramatic. This one is very dramatic. Look at the flames on that. Um, just, yeah, so the result here, so no boundaries. I'm not sure what caused this fire. But it could have started with a natural gas leak. That gas was unbounded, no boundaries. It takes control, and disaster happens. Hopefully, this family and the neighbors across the street or side by side with them were not injured in this great fire. Another one. So what's this? So this is a foundry. You know, this is raw ore being heated up to a liquid state. You can see these little plates that they're making with little collars on the side. These are sheets, in this case, I think it's copper, that are thousands of pounds, right, tons, that they hang up and then they distribute to people that can use the copper in different applications. So this fire in the furnace that was used to create this molten metal is very helpful. We have a lot of great products in our homes because of this application of fire. And what happens when that boundary is removed? In Indonesia, a nickel smelter furnace fire killed 13 people and injured 46 people. So, and here's a picture of that. So, yeah, great destruction. I mean, if there's not very prescribed, very detailed uh, limits what that fire can do, it destroys and it kills people. So, are there boundaries to your sexual desires? Who should be in charge? What are the results of those boundaries? What happens if those boundaries are removed or not in place? You may feel like this guy, may feel like you're all bound up. If that desire is controlling you, it creates chains, creates habits, it creates issues. There's problems. And sometimes, maybe many of us feel like uh, we're our dam has been broken, it's been breached, and the result of this great breach of all that water rushing down river and flooding homes and killing people is very, very dramatic, very bad. So these boundaries are that earthen dam uh, was removed, or it was this part through lack of maintenance lost its effectiveness. So anyway, so some things to think about. I think that power that we have, that sexual desire, is like a fire. I mean, it can burn you. If you let it control you, you will be a slave to it. Or you can use it. It can serve you. With no boundaries, uh, you you will live your life in ruins. With the boundaries, you can live your life with joy and happiness, a more abundant life. So you say to yourself, well, what are these? What are these boundaries? How do you set up these boundaries? How do you stay within these boundaries? Those are all very good questions. And I would say, uh, how do you train a dog to go outside to use the bathroom? How do you, a lot of effort, a lot of training, a lot of um, reminding, and that habit takes effect. How do you train for a marathon? Do you just go out and run 26 miles? If I'm 200 pounds overweight, uh, do I say to myself, well, I think next weekend I'm going to go run 26 miles? I could try that. Might not end up too well, but probably won't be able to finish. Really, how much training do you need before you can do that? It depends on your starting point. And according to Google, they recommend your marathon running training should build up your weekly mileage to around 50 miles per week, with about 3 to 5 runs each week, along with some easy training runs. You should incorporate 1 or 2 workouts with speed intervals and long runs every week. So running 50 miles in a week for training, 5 sessions, that's a long ways. I know I would have a hard time running 10 miles at a time. I'd probably do a couple. And I don't know that I would enjoy that. But how do you train to be a power lifter? How do you train to be very, very strong, be the strongest man in the world? Uh, what would you do? Well, you would have to train yourself, train your body. Could you do it? You absolutely could. You'd have to be very cautious with your diet. Everything that goes in to your body, you'd have to watch very closely, and you'd have to train for hours and hours and watch everything you ate. It's very interesting. I think as a society, we are so focused on having that perfect body. It's probably more than $1 billion industry. People helping other people to look young and stay fit. But shouldn't we focus just as much or even more on our mental or spiritual health? To be mentally and spiritually healthy, how would you go about that? Wouldn't it also require training every single day of your life with no rest days, watching everything you put into your brain? And especially in these days, porn is so accessible, but it is like a cancer and it will kill you, will kill your soul. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in future videos. But so it would require training every day, every minute, every moment, no rest days, no off days. Oh, I'm going to take a day off because I deserve it kind of attitude. And so going back to boundaries, what are those boundaries? Number one, no sex outside of marriage. And really, it starts way before that. You can't even think about that kind of a relationship with a woman. It really does start with your thoughts. You have to be constantly on guard, constantly saying to yourself, well, that thought's not going to help. What good comes from that thought? It'll only leave me frustrated and upset and tied up in chains. So you have to constantly bring those thoughts back in line and discipline yourself. You're not bad. You're not a bad person for having those thoughts. All of us have them. But what you do with them after makes a huge difference. What do you do with those thoughts that come in that are not invited? And I would suggest you need to get rid of them as quickly as they came. So be clean, be free, unlock yourself from some of those chains. If you leave them unchecked and you sit in that darkness, more and more of those thoughts will come. It'll lead to more and more chains, and it'll lead to unhealthy and actions beyond those boundaries that you've set up and God has set up. Keep your thoughts clean. Be free. Are you controlling your thoughts or are they controlling you? Control your thoughts. Be clean. Be free. God will help you if you have some chains. He can help you by breaking those. But you say, well, I'm just so chained down by all this stuff. Porn or sex or masturbation or all of this stuff. I just feel so chained and wrapped up. I can't do it. Well, there is somebody that can help you do it. God can do anything. Do not shortchange him. He has the means. If you have the will, he will help. Make the decision now to stop giving a home to those thoughts. You can stop evil thoughts. You can't really stop evil thoughts coming to you, but you control what you do once they show up. God can help conquer those things. You can be free. Just because you have bad, inappropriate thought doesn't mean you're bad or you've failed. What defines success is what you do after that point. You find yourself a few days ago, we were watching a movie and it kept getting, well, a lot of movies and that are not good. So within a few minutes, we found out this was not a good one, so we turned it off. So turn off the movie, stop reading that book, turn off the YouTube, tell your friends to stop talking about that stuff. You don't need friends like that. Wherever it's coming from, turn it off, be clean, be free. Well, maybe say, I'll just everything's good and I'll control all that, but then when I get married, it's party time. I can do whatever I want, and there's a lot of times young people, myself included, think when you get married, it's all fun and games, and there's no boundaries. There's your wife will take care of all those needs. Well, that's not correct. That's not right. Um, I can guarantee you, trust me, that your wife will not be on the same thoughts that you have about that. 99.99% of the time, she will not have a desire like you have. Um, maybe out of the gates, you get the honeymoon period, it might be similar, but over time, especially after a child has been up all night, or menopause, or all the stresses in life, I can promise you that will change. So you still have to be very sensitive to your wife's desire, lack of desire, and keep it on a very short leash. So back to this sex thing. How do you make sexual desire your servant? Well, number one, it is a huge drive. What do you do with it? What do you do with that energy, that constant energy? You use it for self-improvement. Develop yourself, develop a better relationship with God. Deep down, it's really a desire to know God on a more intimate, greater level. You know, when I was your age, first married or even before, I tried to focus my time on working out, 5, 6 days a week for hours at a time, going rock climbing 3 days a week, working full time, being in school full time, using that energy to serve me and not become a slave to it. I still have all those habits, and I'm very cautious with all the thoughts that I have. Minus I'm not going to school right now, but we're always being educated. But in addition to that, I've also added waking up very early and going to bed early. I think that's very, very good habit also. So bottom line, make sexual desire your servant, or you will be a slave to it. Reach for things that will last forever in your life, not minutes. And I hope this helps.